So before there is some rain here, I will show you something that also has to do with water. And that something is in a big hole. So here we have that hole that is part of the future dog enclosure. And that is also where we have these Paulownia trees and sunhemp and friends planted. We are in the process of removing the yurt because the canvas is now bad and we want to save the structure, but we'll throw away the canvas and sometime later we can put it up again. So in that hole I found water. Yeah, for sure. I definitely found water. So down there you can clearly see it. There's water seeping out of the ground. And that is probably at a depth of of about 2.5 meters. I have to measure this, but I would think that's about 2.5 meters and probably some 50 centimeters more. And the water would be seeping out a lot more. But this definitely is where the water table is at the moment. My plan is to dig some more, basically clean up this part. I want to keep the ramp and also this area here, so that it's a little bit higher. But there I definitely want to have a connection to the water table, and that might then actually help the pond to stay filled at least a little bit. And depending on the plants that we can put all around, they may then able to penetrate and go all the way down there. And this Paulownia tree here gets very little irrigation, and it might be that it already found some water, but it dropped a little bit. But he's close. So this is our objective. Now you can clearly see that there is no biomass whatsoever in that soil. It's only a little bit at the surface. But we do have water. We just need to have trees that can reach it. And then everything goes good from there. Well, that did not work out. There is a thunderstorm, but it's not here. It's over there. That cloud passed us. And things keep to be dry. So maybe next time. But this time we did not get any rain. And over there, there's sunshine. So, bad luck. We keep the bovine herd locked up there in CT1. They get straw and alfalfa pellet because there is nothing else to eat around, and they are mooing because they thought that I will bring their feed, but I'm the wrong one. The guys will do this. And let me zoom in a little bit. You can see there is quite a few calves, and you can always check CT02 to see the current state of this herd. So there you can see all the animals and also their age and their date of birth and all these things. So I went up here to fulfill another promise. This is CT2, where we failed to establish sunhemp and friends. And for those who are new to this channel, so a while back we ordered a lot of seed, and then we received it a month later, and that was due to a strike of the truck drivers here in Spain, and the summer heat had already set in, or shortly after we seeded. The summer heat set in, and also the stuff germinated and grew a little bit. It was too late, and so the whole thing failed. And this time we also ordered the seed, but again, issues, and we did not seed it here, but we are using the seed elsewhere in the compound, and that makes more sense. Because now the idea is to get the compound nice, and then take care of the surrounding area, and then of the surrounding area, and of the surrounding area. So we will develop things from the inside towards the outside, always finishing one thing. And when you have some fertility going on in one place, and then you work on the boundary of that place, the fertility on the inside will also help. So when we work like this, step by step growing, we should make better use of our resources. And after all, we will not do cattle ranching anymore. We shift our focus to trees and shrubs and all that in order to make this forest a forest again. Because this is a forest. This is not a field where you plow and seed row crops and stuff like that. That is elsewhere. This definitely is a forest. But that forest needs some help, and so the idea is to provide the help, and later on we will sell some wood in 10 years. But that's fine. And while the trees that are for wood grow, we can do other things below the trees. Makes a lot more sense than trying to do an outdated model, which is cattle ranching. Of course, the Dehesa traditionally is just that. It's a place to raise livestock. But somehow people have overdone it, and overdoing it has led to the very compacted and very dry soil. This is a brittle environment, and if you do too much and keep the animals for too long, that is the important thing, then it goes downhill. And unlike in temperate climate where it rains every other week, here it does not rain, and it does not rain for months. So in summer it is, you can say at an average 35 degrees centigrade. In the night it cools down a little bit, but it's not so much, and there is absolutely no rainfall. People say in the past it has rained during the summer, here and there an occasional thunderstorm, but it has not in the recent past. So recent past means decades. So that's a problem, and therefore instead of doing more of the same, I decided let's do something completely different. And there's also help available. Think about Life-Terra EU, where the European Union finances afforestation. Let's take advantage of that and do the right thing. And I'm also working on some ideas for some crowdfunding of this effort and similar things, because it's going to be a huge effort, as well as in terms of labor, material that is required, and also the saplings. They need to come from somewhere, because if you look at this, we have about 40 oak trees per hectare. There's a lot of space in between, and that means a lot of trees, a lot of saplings are needed. It's not that we put a tree there and then another one over there. That would not help. So we really need to do this in a massive scale. So that means many, many, many thousands of trees. So I was speaking before about A7 and our attempt to plant there for November. That means 9,000 saplings, and the area is about 6,000 square meters. So that is the scale that I'm talking about when I say plant trees. So the area should be full with new plants, new trees. And I'm curious what has happened there, because I see an oak there in the distance that has fallen over. So let me check this out. Well, here we have it at a closer distance. So that is the other problem. Many of the oak trees in the Dehesa, here in this area and elsewhere, they are sick. They get hollow on the inside. That has to do with the drought, but it also has to do with some bacteria. And that means if we don't do anything about the soil, this will go on, and then there will be the desert. So this is part of the problem. And let's have a closer look. So this tree is not dead, because you can see there is a green part. But that part over here, that is definitely dead. You can see up there, it broke off. Let me walk around. And see how that wood looks like. Of course, it serves as firewood, but it is a pretty bad thing. But maybe this tree can somehow recover. At least something is growing there to the left. Oh, and you can see there that this tree definitely has had issues for a long time. And finally some wind, we had some strong winds, made it break off. So if we now had a wood chipper available, of course we would chip this and then put it in certain places. Some of you have suggested inside the swales, so I'm all for this. Problem is, we don't have a suitable wood chipper. We once had a guy here with a small tractor that was on tracks, and he had a wood chipper and he chipped some of this very hard oak wood, but that was a one-time occasion. My intention is to get a wood chipper and all this in the future, but at the moment we don't have it. So this, yeah, of course we could go here and collect it and bring it down there, and maybe that will also happen, but it's not that this would then solve anything, because the solution for this is a little bit more complicated. It's not a garden, it's a relatively large area, and the solution is to fill this void with a lot of additional plants and trees, and of course they need irrigation to establish themselves. And there is some investigation, and we know where the water table is. I don't know where it is here. This is the slope in Zone C, but at least in the compound I know it. So it is quite deep, and between the surface and the water table there is a lot of very compacted and dirt that is void of any organic material, which is why it is so compacted. So this process has been going on for a long time, and now we can do something about it, and therefore a total shift of the approach. So we are not going to try to make some money by selling food, because this does not work around here, so it makes no sense, and so be it. So why do I say this? So let me remind you, or people watching this the first time, we did some ranching experiments, and we tried to sell our animals for meat. And yeah, you can do this, but ants won't meet. It's because the market is so distorted. So I'll give you an example. Veal, so calves, is a lot cheaper than beef. The reason is the good beef is available in Spain, but it's very expensive. So somewhere in the north, where there are more about beef and cattle, a kilo can easily cost €100. Of course, that's the retail price, but a lot of people won't buy this to eat it at home. They buy this in a restaurant. So they buy a 1 kilo chuletón, a steak, and then split this amongst several people. And then this is the fancy meal in the restaurant. There it works out, but nobody buys this for home consumption. So the people buy meat that is cheaper, and that is veal. It makes no sense to me, because elsewhere veal is expensive and beef is cheap in comparison. So that is because it is, I have no idea, but it also means that a lot of people who run a cow-calf operation sell the calves not to someone who will then feed them and fatten them and finish them and all this. No, they go straight away to a slaughterhouse when they are 9 months old or yearlings, so that the rancher on a land like this doesn't have them around during the summer. And then the adults, the cows, they will be fed with straw and alfalfa pellets, and that way they try to sustain their business. But of course it's not sustainable. So basically they are living off the substance, and at some point they're broke. And as nobody is allowed to bring a butcher and process the animals on site, or the butcher in his butcher shop, you always have to go through an official licensed slaughterhouse. There is the trucking to that place and all the other costs associated. So at the very end, there's no business. So I'll give you an example. When we had 2 cases of tuberculosis, we had to truck these 2 animals to a nearby slaughterhouse, about an hour and a half away by truck, and that transport cost us a little bit more than €500 for 2 animals, because the truck is relatively large, would have fit easily 6 or 8. But now imagine you have a butcher who can sell the meat from 1 bovine. It makes no sense, because that would cost €500 just to truck the animal to the slaughterhouse to get it killed, and then the carcass gets trucked back, which is at least another €500 for a refrigerated truck of a similar size. So you have an upfront expense of at least €1,000, and of course there is no money to be made, because people also have to be paid and so on. So at the end, what people do, they just sell to the slaughterhouse and accept whatever they offer. And in our case, with all the costs subtracted, to give you an example, one of the bulls that we sold that way, it was also because of tuberculosis, we got less than €1,000. And it makes no sense. Elsewhere, you can sell those animals for 3,000 or 4,000, but not around here. So this makes no sense. It's a combination of the rules, how the market works, the preferences of the local customer, and you might also want to know that in Spain there is hardly any direct sales. So people buy in the supermarket and not from a farmer. There's also no farmer's market. There are little markets, but the people who sell there are not farmers. They are retailers of some sort and buy whatever they sell somewhere. And if they happen to sell, for example, chicken, then they buy this from a slaughterhouse. Of course, the presentation is like they were the producer, like they had their own chicken, but they don't. It's a retail thing. So there is no culture of I want to know where my food comes from and I go to the local farmer. No, this does not exist. And because of all that, I learned my lessons and I drew some conclusions. And the conclusion is, let's do forestry. And once the forest is there, then we can come back to the animals. Because somewhere the nutrients for all these plants, like this Paulownia tree, need to come from somewhere. So this is able to grow, and it grows very nice. Soon it will be as tall as the oak behind it. But this needs nutrients. The cattle were supposed to provide these nutrients, but with poultry we can also do this, and management is a lot easier. And here's a good thing: up to 300 birds we don't need any permit. You can just do it. And we can also sell, without any additional permit, up to 12,000 eggs. So with 12,000 eggs a year, of course you don't make any money, but it allows us to promote ourselves here in the region. So the tentative idea, the plan is, once we are able to do this, it won't be this year because of there are more pressing needs, but the poultry project, where I made a video about, that will definitely then also include that. And the idea is to offer the eggs in butcher shops. It's a bit funny, but it is for a reason. The idea is, once we make ourselves known in all these butcher shops, we can later offer, for example, chicken meat in the butcher shop and be their supplier. That would then make more sense, because there is demand for chicken. So people here eat a lot of chicken because it is cheap and it is less costly than the veal, and they don't like it as much because this is an area where traditionally meat means pork. So in Spanish, if you go into a restaurant and you ask for carne, which means meat, then the person assumes that you are asking for pork. Elsewhere it would be beef. So what people eat is chicken, a lot, and then when they can afford it, Presa Iberica, so the prime piece of the Iberico pig. And of course they eat a lot of ham. If they can afford it, the real one, the bellota, so the one that has been fattened here in this place with acorns. And if they cannot, then they buy serrano, which is the sheep stuff, where the pig has lived 6 months in a barn and never has seen the light of the day. But people know how to make ham out of these pigs. This is the so-called white pig. And therefore, forestry, together with poultry, and once a year some pigs in the forest, with close supervision and frequent movement and all that. So basically, once they stop eating the acorns, they move, and they do this all on their own because they are after the acorns and not so much about uprooting at this point. So that should then work out a lot better. And again, this is first and foremost an attempt to restore an ecosystem for the long term. This is not the idea is, oh, I want to run a farm business. If I wanted to make a lot of money easy, I could do this a lot easier in IT. And this is for a lot of different reasons. But of course it should also not be a money sink. So I do want this to sustain itself at the very least. And also maybe provide some passive income when I'm old and I cannot sit in front of a computer and make up software. So we will see. So there's time, there's no rush, and I'm here to show you the trees. So while I was rambling along, you have seen already a few. So you see what we have in the swale. There are some things growing, and that includes some grasses. It is the grass that we tried to seed here, the Sudan grass. And if I turn around, you have seen it already while I was walking. So here on that side, there is a lot more of it, because that area has been a lot moister. We will put this pipe that you see here into the swale and have some openings like that one there. So this is a T-piece, and we just remove the other piece, the pipe, and leave it open, and then we have a shut-off valve on the other side, somewhere over there where it's green because it has been leaking there. And then we can irrigate the swale. And as the trees have the roots a little bit deeper now, that moisture should then reach the roots of the trees so that they can continue growing. And this has not been irrigated. So this is just as it can sustain itself. And it looks very nice. So for example, if you look at that one here, oops, a lot of stones. So that one looks very, very, very good. The other two there, they are very small, but they are coming back. They have been destroyed by an animal, and they are coming back. While the other one has not had such bad luck, and is therefore growing better. There are a few, like this one here and that are slower, but they have made roots and apparently found some water. Of course, this is the purpose of a swale. So there is some moisture left, and that is what they are using. And this one there, if I zoom in a little bit, you might be able to see this. There are a lot of green trunks. So let's try to get in there. So this is a fresh trunk. It is not yet woody. And that means this is all very recent growth. These trees are very funny in the way they grow, and actually they are hollow on the inside. So they grow basically a pipe, and therefore they grow so fast. And later that gets filled. So at the end, the tree is not hollow, but in the early stages, it grows and makes big leaves and a pipe that reaches up to the sky, and then it fills it in later. Also, they grow back from a stump. It's very interesting. So basically you cut them down for harvest after 10 or 12 years, and then a new tree will sprout from that very same stump on one side, and maybe also on a few other sides. Then you cut away those additional sprouts or new trunks. You leave just one, and that one will then fill in the stump. So it grows from one side to the other and fills in the trunk, and in the end, after another 10 or 12 years, it will be as tall and as thick as the tree before, and then you can harvest it again. So these Paulownia trees are very, very, very interesting from a perspective of wood production, but also as a tool for ecosystem restoration, because those big leaves, this is a lot of biomass, and you can also chip them and use the wood chips, and they provide shade. There are a lot of benefits, and because they grow so fast, they are extremely helpful, which is why I want to have a lot of them. Some 400 per hectare is the idea. So 40 oak trees and 400 Paulownias, and the rest filled with native species. And 400 sounds like a lot, but there will be a lot of space for native trees. So, and this is the Sudan grass that is growing here. And once that pipe is in, this also gets some water. And as you can see, there are several outlets. So we just remove that little pipe here, and keep the tea. And then we have water coming into the swale on different sides or in different places, so that it gets filled more or less evenly. And also the area down below can also then benefit. As you can see, there has been some growth that occurred naturally, and it happened because there was moisture from that swale. So this is working out well. There's really nothing to complain about this. And as that Sudan grass started here, and there are also some other grasses and other things, that swale bottom will definitely be filled over time. We may throw in something to add, but even if we don't, this will probably just happen on its own. So I'm very happy. This is a very nice system. But then on the other hand, look at the berm of the swale. So here on that side, you see no plants. So we had there plants that we brought out, some green manure and also some beans, and there was a lot of straw, but there's no seeds. So therefore, nothing grows there. So we need to work on that, but my expectation is that the leaves from these Paulownia trees will help there. Because the taller they grow, the more shade there is, and in autumn when they lose their leaves, all that biomass falls to the ground and step by step helps to increase the fertility, because you see it is stones and sand. So these trees will then feed that soil or build the soil, much better said, so that we can then also seed something. And that something could be sunflowers, sun hemp and stuff like that. But of course we need to cover it with something, because you cannot really use a planter or something like that. And even if you use a rake, all these stones make it very difficult. So all the seed will be eaten by birds and then you are nothing. So we need to get some material to cover it. And that should not be the straw. It should better be the straw processed by an animal, and I'm thinking about horses and donkeys, because they provide a lot better manures than the cow do. So that is what I'm thinking about, and we have done this in the compound already, you have seen that. So once we get more of this, we can definitely repeat this process here, and also on the berm of the other swale down there. But like I said, we work now from the compound outwards, and this is a system that we keep and monitor, but we're not going to do something actively here for the time being. Only things like putting this pipe in there, and occasionally, so basically every 2 weeks or so, we open this for an hour or two and let it become moist again, but that's it. So there will be no activity here. The focus is on the compound and then on the two areas below and above. And once we are done with that, then we find out where to work next. And it will be a lot of forestry. And maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, then we will have some animals in there, and those animals will be birds. Of course, that does not mean that we will not have a few birds in a place nearby to the compound. So in the compound we cannot have them, because our dogs will kill them. They have not been imprinted, and therefore any animal is either an intruder or food, mostly an intruder, so they will just attack them and it doesn't matter. So they're guard dogs, you can do nothing about this. You have to imprint dogs when they are puppies. Basically, when they open their eyes, they are in between sheep or in between chicken, and then they treat them as their own and will protect them and not attack them. But if you miss that point, then the dog is like a wolf and you cannot do anything about it. And after all, a dog is a wolf. Canis lupus familiaris is the scientific name for dogs. And Canis lupus is the wolf. So there's no doubt about this. And their behavior is wolf-like. Of course, a lapdog might be a different thing, but that's human making. And those Mastiff dogs, they are of a different kind. They are nice, but they're pretty wild and very independent. So, now this was the update of those Paulownia trees here. And they are growing very nice because their roots are now deep enough to make use of the moisture that is still in the soil. But we need to replenish. So that is what's going to happen next here.